So I'm sitting in a parking lot outside a Walgreens at 11 at night, and my ex, Marcus, is on the phone telling me it's not working. And honestly, the thing I remember most isn't the breakup. It's that I texted Des right after, before I even called my mom, before I cried, before anything, and his reply came back in 4 seconds. 4 seconds, like he'd been holding his phone. He wrote, "Okay, are you eating? I'm coming over." Not "I'm sorry," not "Are you okay?" Just okay, like he'd been expecting it, like he'd been waiting for it. I didn't think about that part until years later. At the time I just thought, my best friend really shows up for me. I want to tell you about Des because this story isn't really about the boyfriends. It's about the guy who was there before all of them and after all of them, and how I spent almost 6 years thinking I understood him completely, and I didn't understand him at all. We met in 10th grade because our chemistry teacher sat us alphabetically, and my last name is Reyes and his is Prentice, which shouldn't have put us together except the guy in between us. Some kid named Marcus Powell, funny right, different Marcus, small towns, moved to Ohio in October and left an empty seat. So it was just me and Des for 2 years, passing notes about how insane Mrs. Calloway's tests were, splitting a lab station, being 17 and dumb together. He came out to me before he came out to anyone. I remember exactly where his basement, the one with the ping pong table nobody used anymore, and he just said it fast, like ripping tape off. "I think I like guys, don't be weird about it." And I said okay, and then, because I was 17 and had the emotional range of a golden retriever, I said, "Cool, wanna finish the game or not?" And he laughed so hard he had to sit down. He told me years later that was the moment he decided I was safe. Not because I said the right thing, because I didn't make it a whole thing. I came out to him 4 months after that. He already knew. He'd known before I did, probably the way best friends sometimes do. So that's the foundation. Two gay kids in a town with one gay bar 40 minutes away, glued to each other through high school, through my parents' divorce, through his dad's drinking, through prom where neither of us had a date so we went as friends, which everyone in our grade knew was a lie, but nobody said anything because it was Nebraska and 2016 wasn't that long ago, but it felt like forever. Des was the first person who ever made me feel like being gay wasn't a problem to solve. It was just a fact, like being left-handed. I loved him for that before I understood what love even meant outside of that specific shape. Okay, so the boyfriends. Marcus, my Marcus, the freshman year of college one, was the first guy I brought home to meet Des, if you could call a dorm room home. Marcus was pre-med, funny in this dry, deadpan way, and I was stupid about him within 3 weeks. I remember introducing them at a party, watching Des shake his hand, watching Dez's face do this thing, not a scowl, nothing that obvious, just a flatness, like someone had turned the volume down on him. Later that night I asked Des what he thought. "He's fine," Des said. "That's it, fine. What do you want me to say, Theo? You just met him. You usually have opinions." He shrugged, "I don't know him yet." Which, fair, except 3 months later he still didn't have an opinion, except this one time Marcus made a joke about my mom's new boyfriend and Des didn't laugh, and I noticed that, filed it away without really filing it away, the way you notice weather. Marcus and I lasted 8 months. He cheated. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't a movie, I just found out and it was awful in this boring, gutting way. And Des came over with the world's saddest rotisserie chicken from the grocery store because it was 2 in the morning and that's what was open. And we ate it on my floor and he didn't say "I told you so," because he'd never actually told me so. He just held my head while I cried into a paper towel because I didn't own tissues. I thought that was just Des being Des, reserved about my boyfriends, warm about me. I didn't think there was a pattern yet. You don't see patterns when you're 20 and everything feels like the first time it's ever happened to anyone. Then there was Jonah. Jonah was different. Jonah was the guy who made me believe in forever, or believe in the idea of forever, which at 22 is basically the same thing. Jonah played guitar badly and confidently, which I found unbearably charming, and he remembered small things like that I hated cilantro and that my dad's birthday made me weird every October. Des did not like Jonah. This time it wasn't flat, it was something sharper. "He talks over you," Des said, the third or fourth time they hung out. "He does not." "He does, I've counted, he did it 4 times tonight." "You counted." "I wasn't trying to, it's a thing I notice now, I guess." I remember getting annoyed, actually annoyed, because it felt like Des was nitpicking a guy who made me happy, and I said something like, "Maybe you just don't like anyone I date." And Des went quiet in this way that I read as guilty, like I'd caught him being petty. He apologized, said he'd try to be better about it. And he did try. He came to Jonah's shows. He was polite, almost performatively polite, complimenting Jonah's chord progressions in this tone that was just slightly too bright. Here's the thing about Jonah, though Des was right. Not about the interrupting, or not only about that. Jonah loved me in this way that required me to get smaller. I didn't see it because I liked being the center of somebody's attention, even when the attention came with conditions. It took Jonah telling me 11 months in that he didn't love how into my friends I was, meaning specifically Des, for me to understand what he actually wanted from me, which was less of everyone else. I chose Des. I didn't frame it that way at the time. I framed it as I'm not going to let a boyfriend tell me who I can be close to, but looking back, when it came down to it, I picked my best friend over my boyfriend without even hesitating, and Jonah could see that clearly enough to end it before I did. Des didn't say I told you so that time either. He just showed up with terrible gas station snacks again, like it was our thing now, breaking up junk food, and we watched something dumb on his laptop and he let me fall asleep on his shoulder halfway through and didn't move for like 2 hours because he didn't want to wake me. I only know that because he told me sheepishly the next morning like it was an embarrassing confession. My arm's asleep, he said. It's been asleep since like 1 a.m. I didn't want to move you. I laughed. I thought that was just Des being a good friend. I want to pause here because I think this is the part people watching this might already be seeing that I couldn't see. You're probably going, okay, obviously the guy's in love with him, how did he not know? And fair, but you have to understand when someone has been your safety since you were 15 years old, you stop looking at them like a variable. He was constant, he was given. You don't examine the ground you're standing on, you just stand on it. So then there was Sam. Sam is the one that mattered most before everything changed. Sam and I were together for 2 years and 4 months. Sam was steady in a way Jonah wasn't, kind in a way that didn't feel performative, an architect who drew little sketches of buildings on napkins without noticing he was doing it. My mom loved him. My sister loved him. Everyone loved Sam. Everyone except Des. And this time it wasn't subtle at all. This time it was a slow, cold thing that built for 2 years, and it confused me more than anything because Sam was objectively, by any measure a rational person would use, good. Sam remembered Dez's birthday without being told. Sam genuinely tried to be Dez's friend too, invited him to things, asked about his job, and Dez was polite back technically, but there was ice in it. There was a distance where there used to be none. I confronted him about it finally, maybe a year and a half in. We were at his apartment, the one with the busted heater that never got fixed, both of us in hoodies inside in November. Why don't you like him? I said, not a question really, a demand. I like him fine. You don't, you've never liked any of them, Des, Marcus, Jonah, now Sam. It's like, at some point I have to ask what the actual problem is. He looked at me for a second too long. Maybe the problem's not them. Then what is it? He didn't answer that. He said, I'm happy for you, if he makes you happy I'm happy. Which is the kind of sentence that sounds supportive and is actually nothing, is actually a wall built out of nice-sounding bricks, and I was too tired that night to knock on it and find out it was hollow. Sam proposed in the spring of the second year. Small thing, no crowd, just the two of us on the roof of his building with string lights he'd put up that afternoon, and I said yes. And I remember being so happy I felt sick with it, and I remember calling Des before I even called my mother because that's just what you did. He was the first call, he'd always been the first call. He was quiet on the phone, for a beat too long. Des. Sorry, yeah, wow, congratulations Theo, seriously. You don't sound like it's serious. I'm happy for you, he said again on the same wall. I gotta go, I've got an early thing tomorrow. We hung up and something in my chest didn't sit right, but I told myself it was nothing, told myself it was late, told myself people are allowed to be tired even on big nights, and I went back up to the roof and Sam asked what Des said and I said he was happy for us because that was technically what he'd said and it wasn't a lie, just an incomplete truth, which I guess is a kind of lie if you look at it straight on. The wedding planning is where it fell apart, not me and Sam, me and Des. I asked Des to be my best man obviously because who else, and for a few weeks it was normal, cake tastings, him making fun of the flavor names, dumb stuff, and then it started getting strange. He'd cancel on things, he'd be short on the phone. He missed the engagement dinner with an excuse about work that I later found out wasn't true because I ran into his coworker Priya at a coffee shop and she mentioned he'd taken the day off. I sat with that for a week before I called him on it. You lied to me. About what? You weren't working the night of the dinner, Priya told me you had off. Silence on the line, real silence, the kind that has weight. I couldn't do it, he finally said. I couldn't sit there and I couldn't watch it, Theo, okay? I tried, I got dressed, I got in my car, I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes and I couldn't make myself walk in. Why not? What is wrong with you about this? It's Sam, you've had 2 years to get used to Sam. It's not about Sam, he said, and his voice cracked, actually cracked, which I had heard maybe twice in 10 years of knowing him, once at his dad's funeral, once when his childhood dog died. It was never about Sam, it was never about any of them. Then what is it about? And he didn't answer. He said he had to go. And he hung up on me, actually hung up, which he had never done in 10 years, not once, not during our worst fights, and I stood in my kitchen holding my phone like it had betrayed me personally. I didn't hear from him for 11 days. 11 days after 10 years of him being the first call and the last call and every call in between. I texted, he left me to read. I called, straight to voicemail. My best friend, the person who knew my social security number and my worst fear and the exact way I liked my coffee, had just disappeared 3 months before my wedding, and I had no idea why. And it was destroying me in a way that honestly scared me more than it should have, given that Sam, the man I was marrying, was right there, being wonderful, being patient, and all I could think about was Des. That should have told me something. It didn't, not yet. I was too busy being angry and hurt and confused to sit still long enough to look at what the feeling actually was. On day 12, he showed up at my apartment. It was raining, one of those late spring rains that doesn't seem to know if it wants to be warm or cold, and he was standing on my doorstep without an umbrella, soaked through, and he looked like he hadn't slept the whole 11 days either. "Can I come in?" he said, not a real question. His voice was doing something I'd never heard it do. I let him in, got him a towel. He sat on my couch, the one we'd picked out together at a thrift store years ago, dripping onto the cushions, not even bothering to dry off, just staring at his hands. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "And I need you to let me get through it, because if you stop me, I don't think I'll be able to start again." I sat down across from him. I didn't say anything. My heart was doing something strange, that pre-storm feeling, air pressure dropping before you even see the clouds. "I've been in love with you since we were 17, he said. The room did something, I don't know how else to describe it. It didn't spin, it wasn't cinematic, it just tilted slightly, like the floor had shifted an inch to the left. I didn't say anything back then because you were the only person who made me feel normal, and I was terrified that if I told you I'd lose that, I'd lose you, and I'd rather have all of you as a friend than none of you at all. So I decided I could live with that. I told myself I could live with that." Des. "Let me finish, please." His hands were shaking, I noticed, actually shaking, and this was a man who once talked down his own father mid-relapse without his voice moving an inch. "Marcus, I didn't like him because he didn't listen when you talked, he just waited for his turn, and I noticed it because I always listened to you. I've always listened to every single thing you've ever said to me, and it made me angry that he didn't. Jonah, I didn't like because he wanted less of you for himself, wanted you smaller so he could fit better, and I couldn't stand watching you shrink for someone. And Sam." He stopped, his jaw worked for a second. "Sam is good to you. Sam is genuinely actually good to you, and I have spent 2 years trying to find a single real thing wrong with him and I can't, because there isn't one, and that's the part that's been killing me, Theo. Because if he was bad I could tell myself I was protecting you. But he's not bad, he's good. And I still can't stand it. I still lie awake some nights doing math on how many years I have left of loving you quietly before it kills something in me. And I know how insane that sounds. I know I don't have any right to say this 3 months before your wedding. I know this is the worst possible time and the worst possible way, and I've hated myself all 11 days for even considering saying it out loud. But I couldn't stand next to you at that altar and hand you off to somebody else while you thought I was just your best man. You deserve to know what you actually mean to me before you say yes to spending your life with someone else. Even if it changes nothing, even if you marry him anyway, I needed you to know." I didn't say anything for a long time. Long enough that he started to look like he regretted every word of it, like he was watching a door close in real time. "Say something," he said quietly, "please, even if it's that you never want to see me again." Here's the truth, and it's not a clean one, it's not a movie ending. I didn't leap across the room. I didn't cry and confess I'd loved him too, secretly all along, because I hadn't known it, not consciously, not in words. What I felt was more like vertigo. 10 years of memory reorganizing itself in front of me in real time, every gas station snack run, every 4-second text reply, every roof he'd shown up on, every time he'd gone quiet at the exact moment I needed him not to, all of it resolving into a single shape I hadn't let myself see. "I need to think," I said. It came out smaller than I meant it to. "I need Des, I'm getting married in 3 months. He nodded like he'd expected exactly this, like he'd rehearsed being told no. "I know," he said. "I know. I'm not asking you to leave him tonight. I'm not asking you to leave him at all. I just needed you to know the truth before you built the rest of your life on the version of me that only tells you half of it." He left that night still wet from the rain, and I sat on my floor for 3 hours not moving, and I didn't call Sam, which I think, if I'm honest with myself now, was its own kind of answer. I'm not going to pretend the next few weeks were simple because they weren't. I talked to Sam. I didn't tell him everything at first. I didn't have words for it yet, but he could feel something had shifted because he knew me, he really did know me, and one night he just asked, gently, no anger in it at all, is this about Des? And I said, I don't know, which was the most honest thing I'd said in weeks. Sam didn't yell, he didn't even really get angry, which somehow made it worse. He just got quiet and sad and said, I've always known there was a room in you I didn't have the key to. I told myself it was just how close you two were. I think I knew before you did. He gave the ring back to me, gently, no drama in it, just this heavy, tired kindness, and said, go find out, better now than at the altar. Which is a devastating thing for someone to say to you with love instead of bitterness, and I don't think I'll ever fully stop feeling the weight of what I cost him. I called off the wedding. That part isn't glamorous. It was phone calls to caterers and a very awkward conversation with my mother, who cried, and my sister, who didn't cry but looked at me like she'd been expecting this for longer than I had. I didn't go straight to Des. I want to be clear about that because I think it matters. I didn't leave one relationship and fall directly into the next one like some kind of romance movie transition. I spent 2 months mostly alone, figuring out what I actually wanted instead of who wanted me, which is a different question than I'd ever really asked myself before. When I finally called Des, it wasn't dramatic. It was a Tuesday. I said, can we get coffee? And he said yes so fast it was almost funny, that same 4-second reflex from years ago, still there, still true. We sat outside this coffee shop we used to go to in college, and neither of us said anything important for like 20 minutes, just talked about nothing. His job, my mom, the weather, both of us circling the actual thing like it might bite. Finally I said, I've been thinking about what you said, about all those years. He put his cup down carefully like it might break. Okay. I don't think I loved you like that back then. I think I would have told you if I did. But I think somewhere in the last few years it turned into something I didn't have a name for because I never let myself look at it directly. Every time something felt too big with you, I called it friendship because friendship was safe and the other thing wasn't. And now I don't know what to call it either, but I know I don't want to spend the rest of my life pretending it's smaller than it is. He didn't say anything smooth back. He didn't have a line ready. He just exhaled this long, shaky breath like he'd been holding it for 10 years and said, can I hold your hand? I know that's a stupid thing to ask after everything I just said a minute ago, but I want to ask for something small first. I don't trust myself with the big things yet. I gave him my hand. It felt exactly like every other time he'd held it and completely different both at once. We didn't rush into anything. I want you to know that because I think if I told you we kissed right there and everything was perfect, that would be a lie, and this whole story only means anything if it's true. It took months. There were nights he pulled away because he was scared of ruining the one thing that had never let him down, 10 years of friendship, on a bet that this new thing would work. There were nights I got scared too, wondering if I was just running from being alone into the nearest safe harbor, wondering if I even knew the difference between loving him and needing him. But slowly it got easier to trust. He started leaving his 4-second replies for other things too, good morning texts, dumb memes, thinking about you at 2 in the afternoon for no reason. I started noticing all the ways he'd loved me for a decade without saying the word, and instead of it feeling like a betrayal that he'd hidden it, it started feeling like the safest thing I'd ever been handed. A love that had already survived silence, distance, 3 other men, a canceled wedding, and 11 days of a broken phone line, and was still standing there afterward, hand out, asking permission instead of taking anything. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony, no string lights on a roof this time, just a backyard, folding chairs, his mom crying more than mine did. I asked him at the reception, half joking, half not, why he never just told me sooner all those years ago, before Marcus, before Jonah, before Sam. He thought about it for a second. Because I didn't think I deserved to get in the way of you being happy, he said. I thought loving you quietly was enough as long as you got to have what you wanted. It took me watching you almost marry someone else to understand that quiet love isn't noble, it's just scary. I think about that a lot, honestly. Not just for what it means about us, but for what it means in general, how the people who show up the most, who stay the longest, who never make a single move aren't always just being patient. Sometimes they're terrified. Sometimes the friend who hates every person you date isn't difficult. Sometimes he's just been standing there the whole time, hoping you'll eventually turn around and actually look at him. I got lucky, I know that. Sam deserved better than being the practice round for someone else's love story, and I think about him sometimes, hope he's happy, hope wherever he is, he found someone who looks at him the way I should have looked at him and didn't. And Des got 10 years of loving me from 3 feet away before he ever got to have me at all. Sometimes late at night when he thinks I'm asleep, he still does this thing where he checks his phone the second it buzzes, fast, reflexive, like it might be me needing him. 10 years of habit doesn't just disappear because the story finally has a different ending. I asked him once if he regrets waiting so long to tell me. He said no. He said if he'd told me at 17 I wouldn't have understood it yet, wouldn't have had the years of watching him love me in every quiet, unglamorous way first. The chicken at 2 a.m., the arm gone numb so I could keep sleeping, the 4 seconds it took him to say okay every single time for 10 straight years. I didn't want you to fall for the idea of me, he said. I wanted you to fall for the proof. And I did, eventually. It just took me almost losing him completely to finally see what had been standing right in front of me the whole time.